Welcome to Defenders TV Podcast, episode 94, where we're looking at Iron Fist, season 1, episode 5, Under Leaf Plucks Lotus. Welcome back, Defenders. This is Defenders TV Podcast, and this is episode 94. We are 6 away from the big 100. And more importantly, we are looking at episode 5 of season 1 of Iron Fist, and that is Under Leaf Plucks Lotus. I'm one of your hosts, Chris.
I'm one of your other hosts, John.
And I'm your last host, Derek. Welcome back.
Yeah, guys, we're here. Episode 5. What can I say? Well, look, I'm dying to get into this discussion, so I'm going to blaze through our usual bits. But for anyone new to the podcast, what are you doing? We've got 4 other episodes you can listen to. But more importantly, the way we do it is we take our combined top 5 points, we'll discuss them through, add in a few notes, and then decide whether we defend this episode or not. But more importantly, if you want to know when the next one is coming, we put new episodes out every Friday and Tuesday each week, and episode 6 will be out on the 31st of March. So which is a great thing. Obviously, we're coming towards the end of March, and this is only going to get better because we are getting ever so closer to Spidey, to Thor, to Guardians of the Galaxy, and this all leads to the Defenders coming up in the summer, which is going to be fantastic. Who can't wait for that? But anyway, if you have feedback and you want to tell us your thoughts on this episode or any of the previous episodes, don't forget you can go pop over to defenderstvpodcast.com and leave a short voicemail. It's about 90 seconds, and you can record your thoughts and have your dulcet tones all over our podcast airways. Usually I'll tell you where we can follow us, but you have to hold on to the end of the episodes because we have a special thing that we've announced already, but we're going to bring it back again. So, without further ado, guys, do we want to get into the episode details?
I think so. I think it's time.
Absolutely.
All right, Derek, do you want to take us away?
Yes, this episode was written by Christine Chambers. First time story credit for Christine. She did work quite heavily on Boardwalk Empire. She seems to work in a couple of writers' rooms before as a producer or as an assistant within the writers' rooms, but this is her first story credit. She worked on Boardwalk Empire, which means she may have worked with Charlie Clark's Daredevil himself at some point. She may have written an episode for him in the past.
Yeah.
So I love these connections that we find with the people behind the screen. It's quite cool. And this episode was directed by Uta Breiswitz. We know her from her work on Jessica Jones, so another returning director this time. She did AKA I've Got the Blues. And she will direct an episode of the upcoming Defenders TV show. So once again, keeping some more directors in the Defenders camp as they go through all these wonderful shows.
Absolutely, that's excellent.
Yeah, I think what they're trying to do here is obviously they're going through picking the best of the best, and those who actually rise to the top of the best get to direct or write for the Defenders.
That's probably
they're picking literally the cream of the. It's like almost like a writers and directors. How would you put it? Fight to the death.
Fight Club.
It's like, yeah, Fight Club. Literally, you can just see them like doing with pens and paper, and then what would the directors use? Like the snapboards, and
clapperboards.
Clapperboards, fighting to death with clapperboards.
Nice. I like it. I really like this idea that they're keeping on board some of the directors and writers from previous shows and giving new starts to other people.
Yeah, and I think just allowing them to meet the other characters and write for them or direct them, that kind of cross-pollination, it will hopefully pay dividends for the Defenders.
Absolutely.
They have a sense of each of the characters and how they work. So that'd be really good, yeah.
That's quite cool. So John, do you want to tell us what Christine Chambers gave us with her first written episode?
Sure. A new synthesized opiate drug is being touted on the streets of New York, associated with the symbol of Xiao Lao the Undying, left at Danny's apartment door by the Yang Clan from the Golden Sands. It is linked by Danny to the pier recently acquired by Rand Enterprise as the entry point for the drug into the city. In all the distraction, Danny unknowingly compromises himself and Rand Enterprises as he's caught on camera with a lady who has filed a lawsuit for health and environmental damages and accepts responsibility for the situation. As he goes to Colleen Wing with takeout to ask if she will assist him to check out the pier as another shipment is imminent, he arrives at the dojo and meets a new trainee called Claire Temple, who joins them for lunch. With the help of the Steel Serpent's drug, Ward gives the finger to his father's control of the company and tries to forget the mess left by Danny's actions. At the docks that night, Danny and Colleen uncover Radovan Bernavig, the chemist, and the source of the new drug, rescuing him from the grasp of the Hand. Madame Gao shows up and deals with this setback for the Hand with ruthless and pointed efficiency.
Loads of big moments in this episode.
And how pointed.
I know, a lot going on in this. I have a few little misgivings on this episode. I think I felt it was tempered. Certainly, it didn't feel as though it built, but I did enjoy it. And again, oh my god, I think if I can just really go to the first point, Madame Gao, if this doesn't sound wrong, she is like great. 40 years younger, you maybe would. I have to say, I just think the presence of her is great, and I wish she'd been introduced a bit sooner into this episode. Just it takes a long time getting to the action and the fight scene in the back of the container, Colleen and Danny going to the docks, and just seeing Madame Gao just being so cool, ultimately so cool. I wish she had been in this a bit sooner, but I suspect that maybe now her face has been revealed. Finally, she has moved from the shadows. I think she's going to be a bigger player for the episodes to come, and that I am absolutely looking forward to, because I think she just brings something to this show, like she did with her brief screen time in Daredevil, and certainly that moment where she's with Fisk as well, where despite her diminutive figure, she put herself on par with Fisk and his kind of physical presence and power. And I mean, I have to say, just that ending where she just commands him to kneel, and he does, and then
he doesn't move at all.
I know, and then just the sword through the back of the neck and out the mouth. I'm like going, oh my god, you are just scary. So scary, but so good for this. Really good. I mean, even just, I think with the Hand as well, it's great because it does show that difference. The Hand will use violence and intimidation at every moment in time. And then, even though Danny is a warrior monk, although he won't shirk away from fighting, I don't think the first instinct is always necessarily to kill. It's just to fight and to beat the opposition.
Absolutely,
not necessarily to kill. I love that contrast here.
Yeah, definitely. And that's apparently what it takes for you to be interested in marrying someone, is if they are brutal and shove swords through people's throats. Interesting, John.
Well, no, okay. Let me just kind of I must clarify this. I just think she is that counterpoint at the moment. Okay, yeah. I mean, we did have Davos being name dropped here, so it'll be interesting to see whether she is subservient to him or what the story is there. But like, for me at this moment in time within the series, like, she is the big bad. She's the one controlling Harold. She's the one organizing everything, and she's the most badass, quite frankly. She would just kill you. I mean, she's badass. Ward. That's what I mean. She's great.
Yeah, certainly more than Ward and Harold Meacham. Obviously, she's definitely the most badass of the bad people that we've seen so far.
For me, Madame Gao, the more and more I see this character, the more I'm intrigued. The more I want to know more. The actress is Wei Ching Ho. I hope I'm not butchering the pronunciation there. And we know her from Daredevil, but she was in Sorcerer's Apprentice and a few other shows and kind of movies, but nothing major.
Right.
But I think the presence she brings, it's that stare. Just that deadpan. It's almost like if you broke a toy and you brought it to her and she was your mother, you couldn't like. She just stare at you and just kind of like, you'd be like, okay, I'm sorry, I did it. She just has that evil motherly look, if that's such a thing. I'm not calling mothers evil. I'm just saying, okay, where am I trying to go with this? It's just that very much stern, deadpan, take no shit stare.
You don't want to disappoint Madame Gao. That's the fundamental fact here. But I did find it fascinating that, and I did mention it a little bit earlier on, but I did find it fascinating that she commands the guy to kneel, stands behind him, takes her sword out slowly. You can hear the sound of the sword. So this guy would have heard and would have known his death is coming. But he makes no motion to move, to plead with her, to apologize for what's happened and letting Danny away. She just slaughters him right in front of her, and he makes no move because he realizes this is what's going to happen to him. You know, but how much respect people have for Madame Gao, is that what it is? That she commands them and they just do it.
But they are unswerving servants of the hand. They, I presume, are programmed, trained to lay down their life and take orders with absolute obedience. So I wonder whether it's that. I think as well it is that thing that you actually just do not know what she will do. Like, I mean, when she met up with Harold, you kind of okay, other than the fact that he's a bigger character in the show and you expect him to survive, but still nonetheless there's that moment where what's she going to do to him? Like, you did wonder. And then it's, here's your reward. Rather than a clip around the ear holes and a smack around the back of the legs. Whereas here, it's kind of, it's that unpredictability of what course of action she's going to take that I find just fascinating with her. Like, she will engage in dialogue like she did with Daredevil, for example, in one of them, yet she'll be ruthless against people who are working for her. She will accept some of the waivers that happen with Wilson Fisk in Daredevil, and the same maybe even is true of Harold Meacham here with regards to leaving the apartment. She is happy to absorb that, but then she can be ruthless in other ways. And I think it's just that unpredictability, and I think just encapsulating that in outwardly a frail old woman is absolute genius for me, and really just adds to the sense of unpredictability. So this is really good, and now we're seeing that connection to this new drug that we had the start, where we had the Jackie Brown type-esque walk of the three ladies at the start, to the music to deliver this new drug to which this poor guy is being killed for because he's failed to protect the source of this new drug, the chemist Radovan Bernavig.
But there's definitely, he didn't even have an opportunity to give any kind of excuse to her. He says to her, this guy is a powered individual who beat him in hand-to-hand combat because he's able to use this power in his hands. No
or
sympathy.
His fist.
Or his fist, exactly. Eventually she corrects him, Are you sure it was his feet? Are you sure it wasn't his fists, kind of thing? But no chance of getting away with this, even though it's a superpowered individual. She's like, it doesn't really matter. Thanks for the information. Knife through throat. Bye now.
Yeah. Do you think the thing I took from this was, so we remember that some of the ninjas are dead already. They have no heartbeat.
Yes.
So maybe it's like, okay, your demotion is death and you become a ninja.
Maybe.
He was maybe a lieutenant or a sergeant because he was alive and he was charged with this. And now he's like, well, you screwed up. Okay, you're going to be killed and we'll potentially bring you back as a faceless ninja with no heartbeat.
Perhaps. Well, I know. I think they were slowing their heartbeat, weren't they, so that he couldn't hear it? I thought it was something like that. I didn't think they were all dead.
No,
they were doing something to slow their heartbeat.
I don't know about the slow, but they had no heartbeat because
masking the sound of their heartbeat or something, wasn't it?
No, they had none, and he could only hear their pitter patter.
Yeah.
And
Daredevil,
Daredevil. He, you know who I'm talking about here, now, people.
Maybe, but that sword definitely went through the brainstem. That's why she did it at that point. So I'm not sure.
Maybe, maybe it's just,
But an interesting theory, Chris.
He was basically, he was basically kebabbed, effectively.
Kebab.
Oh, God.
I'm sorry, I really want a kebab now. Jumping on to the chemist piece, as John was saying. So I have a bit of a nitpick on this. Okay? So we've come out of an episode where Danny beats the living hell out of 7, 8 guys in a hallway, and he has some serious issues with one guy in a moving truck.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I get you wanted to get a nice fight scene in, but you're literally Danny is getting nearly beaten on a number of occasions by this member of the hand. So he didn't look that spectacular.
Right.
Like, if they had made him do first thing he does, if he was a proper hand guy, he would have, like, gone into a fighting stance like a ninja, except he pulls out a gun.
Yeah.
And then he pulls out the knives. Okay, I get that, but he didn't even pull them out. He grabbed them off the kitchen counter. I was like, this fight just slightly irked me. It was a good fight. Yeah. I liked the choreography, the breaking of the countertops and using them as different weapons. That was cool. It just Danny nearly getting his ass handed to him at least 2 to 3 times nearly in that fight.
Right.
You're like, really? This is the immortal weapon of the Kung Lung.
It's a really interesting one, isn't it? I know we talked about it on a previous episode about one of the things about Danny's power is that he does have to have a moment to gather his chi together and to center himself before a fight. So it seems like surprise is the biggest opportunity to take down Danny. If he doesn't have that moment to settle himself and he's just being thrown around like is happening in this fight, it seems like he doesn't have all of the abilities that would be available to him as the Iron Fist. It feels like he's a reasonably good fighter. It can be bested, but if he doesn't have the opportunity to set himself up for that fight, he's not as good. That's what it feels like they're trying to say. But it's not that clear. You're right, Chris. It's not that clear in this scene. But it feels like this guy is just brutally throwing him left, right, and centre, and he's not getting the opportunity to catch his breath to fight back against him.
Yeah, I think that is one of the things. Yeah. It is still unclear just to what extent he controls his power and how it operates. In the sense that, like, I was thinking the same as yourself, that, he managed to knock out loads of these guys with the hatchets in the corridor, and now he's struggling with one. However, they were triads, and this guy was the hand, I assume.
Right.
But then, so that he's a better warrior, he's almost the equivalent of a warrior monk, but for the hand,
right.
So that's why it was more difficult to take the guy out. So that's how I was thinking about it. But I mean, just coming back to how he uses his power, that idea, one of the things that I loved about when he was being beaten in the psychiatric hospital was that as that was happening, you could see the power, you could see the smirk or the smile on his face as he realized that his power is coming from this challenge. And he said it himself that, it's only in the heat of battle. Well, he's battling there, so he should be able to call on the power of the Iron Fist at that moment in time. I think that he can do it through centering his chi in a quiet moment, but he can also, in the heat of battle, call upon it because that's when he sees clarity and can channel it. Yet he doesn't at this moment. That doesn't seem to have happened in this fight, for example, whereas he turned it on very quickly with the hatchet smashing against it. So
we saw that moment where they took the pause, but again, I do think we're giving the show a lot to try and explain something that they didn't explain. But you are right, Chris. You don't really understand why this character is able to almost best Danny a couple of times in this fight. There's no explanation given. He didn't, take a drug that took away his powers here, or me saying that he's surprised is a guess at why at why this guy could fight against him. John saying this guy's a hand fighter they're all guesses because it's not really explained well in the scene as to why they're having a one-on-one equals battle,
Yeah, at this point. But anyway, so look, that was one of my irks. But then, so the next point of that is that kind of John brought up at the beginning of this, which is the drug. So this was cool. So we're starting to find, okay, so this is, the chemist has created pure heroin that can be ingested, can be put on a patch, that can be like, it was just everything, and it's pure, and it's like back to the very first hit for any user, and we find out then, like, that is what the hand is doing. That is what the Steel Serpent logo was about. That is what the drug that it is carrying. It is not, as we thought, just it's coke or heroin. It is a special new form, and they're flying this guy in for production in New York.
Yeah, and it's funny actually because one of the ladies, I think, when Danny is outside speaking with the lady involved in the lawsuit against them, as he's coming out of Rand Enterprises just before that encounter, one of the ladies who's seen at the start with the trolley bag selling this new synthetic form of opium, she's walking into Rand Enterprises, and I just wonder if that sort of neatly takes us into Ward's increasing use of pills, potions, and drugs. Like, you know, was she going to visit him as a high-level customer of all of this? Because here we really do see Ward start to kind of just break down a little for a number of reasons. Because Danny has effectively compromised the company again, and secondly, because he is now aware that he's being watched by his father. Now, maybe he knew that already. I must say, I loved that moment where he's giving the finger, to the camera on his computer, I reckon, and then all around the room. But, we see
that's
him...
because he gets the text message in saying, do what she says from his father. So his father's watching him the whole time, unable to hear the whole conversation in the room. It feels interesting that he's never been aware of that Ward has never been aware that that's how his father has such great control on the business, is because he's watching Ward the whole time, It's interesting to see Ward start to break down, but it's something that we didn't mention a couple of episodes ago, the conversation between Ward and Joy, where he says, I want to leave, I want to get out of this, there's no way out. And then she says she's not going to go with them. We didn't mention that on the previous episode discussion. So Ward is trapped in this situation as the head of the business because he's the only person that his father can have contact with, and his father keeps wanting to be in control of every decision made within the business. So he does completely feel trapped, and now he's battling back, and I must say I'm really enjoying it. It's quite interesting seeing this character who, as Joy says, all of his decisions have been unimpeachable in the past. We must trust in his decisions. And all of those decisions in the past had come from Harold. This is the first decision he's making himself. And it's a very poor decision, it seems, for the business. But is that what Ward is doing? Is he trying to run the business into the ground, kind of, because he wants to get out of it, and this feels like the only way out? By becoming a drug addict, that's also bad for the reputation of the business. He won't be able to manage the business if he's sitting in his office taking heroin all the time. Is he trying to do this as the two fingers up to his father, the whole thing, do you think?
No, completely. And that, just for John, it was actually all three of them went into Rand.
It was all three of them.
Yeah,
I just caught one of them.
Yeah, I caught. They made it obvious on the third girl, but it was or the third lady, I should say. But the other two did go in, which makes me think potentially that it could be being baked down in the Rand chemicals in the basement,
maybe
in the research lab or something like that. On Ward, this descent into, so we question, what's those little pills he was taking? This shows that he is a full-on, potentially an addict of some kind.
Yeah,
he is potentially just prescription addict to this point, and that constant look at the heroin that Danny had gave him shows that he was questioning once or twice, and then he did it. And then what I found most interesting was Joy says, "What did you take now?" Or what is it? I need to know. So it looks potentially like he has had some variation of overdose, or he's been caught in this compromising position before. Maybe. That Joy has to ask, what have you taken? Like finding him in this state.
Yeah.
So yes, I like to see that this is the fall of Ward Meacham. This is the fall before an even greater fall, perhaps, because I think you're right. That comment you said about the where they said to him that, or Joy says that all his decisions have been great. We must trust in him, and this is the first decision he is taking by himself.
Yeah, and it's against Joy. It's against what she recommended as well, but she still stands by him.
Yeah,
yeah.
So it's showing that potentially, okay, he is not the charismatic, smart business mind he thinks he is, and luckily, I think it was a double-edged sword of what Joy said, because you could see his face where they all voted for him, but she said because of all his previous decisions, which we know and he knows was all because of Harold. So this is great to see that potentially this man is starting to come undone on episode 5.
Yeah.
That's the bit I'm like, okay, what if? I know episode 4 was our theory episode. Okay, what if actually Ward goes to the hand? What if he becomes one of the big bads because he becomes so twisted? He rats out his father about Danny. He then becomes one of Madame Gao's new lieutenants.
Interesting.
And becomes her direct. Because I'm trying to. This is the one. This didn't answer any real questions, really. It just gave us a lot more.
Yeah.
Which is fine. We're only episode 5.
Season,
I know. Yeah, exactly. But I'm wondering are they trying to set Ward up as this? They're giving him the fall now, so he may rise against Danny later.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe.
To a degree.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that they're playing him as this stressed out addict CEO.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I had this great image in my head of what would happen to Harold Meacham if something really bad did happen to Ward, if he had an overdose, for example, and just was taken off to hospital or died. What happens then to Harold? Does he pick up the phone and call his daughter and go, yeah, I know everybody thinks I'm dead, but I need your help here to control the company because I have nobody else to do it. Like, what happens then? He now has Danny, but Danny wouldn't listen to him. I don't think Danny would go along with the type of actions he makes Ward do, which is the interesting part.
No, and I mean, like, he's under huge pressure because, as you say, on the one hand, his decisions aren't his decisions. They're his father's. And at the same time, he's keeping that secret, or both these secrets, that and the fact that his father is still alive, from his sister. And like, again, it's what is Joy going to do, because she ultimately is going to find out that her father is still alive.
Yeah.
And she's going to know that her brother knew, and she's going to know that Danny knew, and that they have kept this secret from her. So that pressure on Ward, it's not just the CEO, it's all that personal stuff. And then you get Danny Rand coming at this moment. And we still have this expansion in China that they're going through as well. So all of Danny's actions so far on the pharmaceuticals, now on this lawsuit, it is undermining that work. However, it seems like Ward maybe just doesn't care anymore. Like, I do like the fact that as that story comes on the news and begins to spiral out of their control, he goes, "Suck on that, Dad," as he looks at the drugs. And I actually really liked the slip that he almost does as he's absolutely whacked out on the heroin, where it's like, he makes it slip about being watched, and you can see the confusion on Joy's face. What does he mean? But then ultimately goes, he's just taken heroin.
Yeah.
But I also like that kind of brother sisterly thing, where she kind of just takes him in her arms and kind of, I think, just holds his hand and so on. I think that's really it's just just a great little connection between the two of them. Yes, she knows her brother's not perfect. She knows that he can be a bit abrupt and a bit of a dick, but at the same time, she's always there. And I think, this is just going to get more awkward for him and for that whole thing.
I think after Ward confiding in her that he doesn't like this role anymore and that he does want to get out of the role, I think she's kind of realizing that he is on the edge of something here. And then to find him in the office here, whacked out in heroin, it's pretty bad. I think there's definitely more ramifications to this. There's definitely more going to be coming out of this. But Joy seems like she's probably going to have to step up a bit more than she has in the past as the CEO rather than just the backer of her brother's decisions. So that'll be interesting to see.
Completely. So do you think we can move on to our next point?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. I've been dying to do this. Danny and Colleen sitting in a tree eating takeout.
Yes. With a guest.
So close. So close. We are potentially seeing a off-script, off-comic book romance building.
I know. It was really heavy in this episode that almost every single time Danny looked at Colleen, she had a little flutter, and then Danny reciprocated later with a little flutter of the eyes when the two of them meet. It was a lot, wasn't it?
I thought the tension between the two of them with regards to their emotions and that, I thought it was excellent. And I even liked it when they infiltrated into the pier, where they're kind of between two containers, and it's kind of like we can't be doing this now, but it's that awkwardness of trying to express their emotions, I thought was really good. I really liked how Claire Temple really kind of notices this, and I just think the way that Colleen Wing, the way it's played, how she's kind of all quite, like, she just wants to burst out into smile. It really kind of goes against her character of being disciplined, a dojo master, a teacher, and all of this, keeping strict discipline. And it's like that whole presence of Danny just softens that, and it softens her face, and it comes across really well and is played really well by Jessica Henwick here. I think it's a nice touch, really subtle. And as I say, in particular, when they're infiltrating the pier, I kind of like that this conversation is still going on whilst they're jumping across containers and all that.
There's a great line that she kind of drops where she's kind of saying to Danny that she's making this a bit awkward for him, from the moment she realised that the dinner he was bringing over could potentially be a date, and it goes all the way through, and they have that conversation all the way through the evening and into this infiltration at the pier. And then she kind of says to him, "I'm not very good at this," and he goes, "At what?" And she goes, "At talking." So it's kind of, I'm not very good at any of this at all. So if you're getting mixed signals from me, it's because I'm not good at this. I thought that was quite interesting because it's also playing on the fact that Danny does mention he had a vow of chastity when he was in Kunlun, so which gets the greatest smile off Claire Temple that I've seen. I love that little moment, but it kind of comes off the back of that, where you presume that because Danny has no practice at this at all, he's going to be very awkward around Colleen, and he may be misreading or maybe sending out the wrong signals to her as well. So I do like that kind of dynamic between the two of them.
Well, that's it. It's kind of, I love their conversation at the docks where he's like, it's nice to have someone you can rely on, and he looks at it and says, "Do you have that?" And it is the fact that actually they've both been loners, and all of a sudden they're both each other's crutch to an extent, even though she does question him about, you've got the Meachams, but like he doesn't really. And I think he knows that. I think one of the other great lines there was that she goes, "Those guards have got machine guns," to which Danny replies, "Yes, because they don't know how to fight. We do." And I think even just before that, the whole, the whole face off between the two of them with the katana, and he's saying to her, "Look, you are really good." I thought that was excellent. I do like that. So let's hope it develops, eh?
Yeah, it's interesting. I wasn't expecting to hope for Danny and Colleen to get together, because I don't think they're the couple that I would have wanted to see together. I think we talked about it in our 101 that there is there's definitely a connection in the comic books between Misty Knight and Danny Rand, and that's the big expected relationship to happen. slightly different dynamic between the two of them on TV than there would be in the comic books. They're of similar age in the comic books, I think, and similar kind of experience. In the show, obviously, Colleen was destined to have this role. But yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm liking how it played out in this episode. But I certainly wasn't hoping for it before the show started. Actually, I think is kind of my point.
Yeah, and I'm in agreement with you. I was set in that, okay, he'll be flirtatious with everyone, not knowing. So I like this flip in that, actually, no, he's still this chastity welding 10-year-old to a degree. He doesn't know how to flirt. He grew up with wire monk men that we know of. Like, he's still potentially a virgin. Like, so this awkward kind of discussions and flirtatiousness, I'm liking that. Yeah. Colleen's bit is, I'm not good at talking. That for me was, I love that line and delivery. I like that Claire was there and that Colleen was, and the two of them kind of played off each other when it's like, oh no, I'll just sit down and have dinner too. Yeah. Can I take? By the way, Claire takes awkward. 4. Yeah, she took 4 of the takeaway things tubs. I was like, really?
Never turned down a free meal, Chris. Never turned down a free meal.
I remember that.
This is probably the best restaurant in New York that's just done a takeout or a delivery or Deliveroo to the dojo. You know, what I know I should let the show away with it, obviously, but the moment when Claire says, "I'll sit down with you," is when I realised that there's one of the staff is coming in with chairs and a table and a setting for the table. Where do they get the other chair and the forks and the plates to allow Claire to join them? It's kind of, we brought an extra set along just in case there happened to be a third person in the dojo. No, you didn't.
Yeah, I think I would have preferred if it had just been like regular takeout of some description rather than, like, 5-star restaurant Deliveroo type thing. Because, I mean, where did the extra seat come from?
Like, I know, obviously, the explanation is, because it's just popped into my head, Colleen lives there, so I'm sure she has a chair and...
that's
I'm
true
sure
as
it's
well.
just popped into my head, but it was just the moment because they were putting out extra chairs. Did they bring a third one in case of the situation?
I think the thing is, it was really good that Danny showed up when he did, and that Claire Temple was there being trained by Colleen Wing because of what, the little stub she ripped off of one of Colleen's adverts in Luke Cage. That was really good. But then the whole takeout thing just made it slightly kind of shoehorned in then, because it was like, okay, Claire was acting like the wingman to Colleen because, it was... The question is this a date? No, unless you want it to be. And he says, I need your help. And she's like, and that requires candlelight, as there's candles being brought in.
Yeah.
And I kind of thought, well, if it had just been takeout, and even just that Claire would, okay, she knows it's Danny Rand, majority shareholder in Rand Enterprises, but it is kind of, excuse me, I've just paid for a lesson here. I mean, I know she does the one-off joke about my mum is always saying I keep falling into situations with these, these powered individuals and all that. But I think from taking something that works really well from Luke Cage, I don't know, it just seemed to be a bit shoehorned then and a bit convenient after that, and I thought it but then it brought about the whole romance thing between Colleen and Iron Fist and that awkwardness, which was good. I just didn't quite know how I felt about it really, and certainly when he also said, oh, I've bought your building, like, again, it's kind of like, is he a billionaire where that stuff matters? Does he not listen to what she's saying, or is he a warrior monk who money isn't the important thing?
Yeah.
And it was the same with that takeout where, it was a 5-star restaurant on the move. That's what it was, not a takeout.
Yeah.
So I think, is he a Stark-like figure or a Strange-like figure, or is he Danny Rand? And I think he is different. He wants to be street. He wants that. He doesn't want the trappings of his of his parents' success and all that. As he says himself, I'm not a good businessman. I don't know the commercial world, but what I do know is how to get the hand. This is what I've been brought up for and trained for. So I just want them to be a little careful there. But that maybe I'm reading way too much into it. It was just one of those things.
It's just a dinner. No, he does explain that the dinner is because that's the only place he knows. He was 10 when he left. He doesn't know many places in New York. It's the only place he knows because it was his father's favourite. So he does kind of explain it. But yeah, I would have expected that he'd turn up with pizza. You know, I'm sure Colleen would have been just as appreciative of that. But he's definitely taking... he's not taking no for an answer with Colleen. She said to him 3 times now, I don't want your money. And now he's just bought her building and is going to waive her rent for her, you know? It's like as if he just feels, I've got all this money and I don't know anybody and I don't have any reason or anything to spend it on. Unlike Stark, who is going out and buying gadgets and buying stuff for himself all the time because he's quite a selfish character, this guy is willing to give it to his friends. And he only really has one, which is Colleen, you know?
Yeah.
So I think he's kind of... it's not overly lavish to buy a building and make the person pay rent to you. That's not overly lavish, you know. He's not bought the building and put it in her name, for example. You know.
Yet.
Yeah.
So basically, I can see him going, I'll give you the deeds if you do this mission with me.
Right.
That's where I see this kind of the escalation until she goes, no, I'll do it just because it's for you. And they'll kiss and scene. Like, I
hope not, Chris.
I hope so much they don't do that.
I think the good thing is I love when they were sat round the table there. You know, there was some really nice little bits of information and some, you know, some really good stuff coming from this. Even though maybe it was slightly contrived at some point, at some level. But, you know, I love the fact that, you know, Claire is asking, saying, oh, so was it all vegetarian food at Kunlun and in the monastery? And he's like, yeah, although I used to sneak out with my friend Davos to get donkey meat and to eat donkeys. So that was really good. We got Davos mentioned here
as a friend of Danny Rand as well.
Exactly, and we have here that he identifies the steel serpent symbol as the symbol that represents Xiaolao the Undying, and that's it. I mean, like, Davos is in Kunlun. He is from Kunlun, so that thing that we did talk about, that they would know one another, has been confirmed here, which it is, I think, it is really good. And I do like the fact that all of this does lead Colleen Wing to eventually be the wing woman and the wingman of Danny. She's bought into it. She's like, I'm in. Yeah. I like the idea that, you know, he does say to her, it's because you like to fight. So that, like, the cage fights were as much about fighting as they were about the money. Like, I like that that's kind of been highlighted. She likes the thrill and the excitement.
Yeah, you've got your theories correct.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah, no, and that was great. That was one of the bits I was happy about. They actually explained it. They acknowledged that this was something that you were probably going, huh? So they explained it and they showed her growth and understanding as that, which I didn't actually perceive as being a part, in that we kind of gave out going, why did she do this? There was no exposition. Like, they didn't explain it. There was no narrative. And actually what we ended up getting was that she didn't know why she was doing it. At first she wanted just the money. The second time was it. And then they showed her growth by going, actually, okay, I enjoy this. I like testing myself. Yeah. Which was great. John, I need to pick your brain now.
No, don't do that.
Well, yeah, I'm going to Madame Gao you. Give me a second. So the Davos bit, I'm now questioning, because they've name-checked him already. And he was his friend, and he was in Kunlun, and the Steel Serpent logo that we would always call we have been calling the Steel Serpent logo, is actually the symbol for Xiaolao the Undying. Where are we, guys, in percentages that Davos is going to turn up in this series?
100%.
Now, I'm
100%.
I'm at 100%. Either the monks of Kunlun have sent Davos to retrieve Danny, because still not sure about that thing of getting out of Kunlun after 15 years and coming back to New York, whether that's allowed by the monks or not, because he is supposed to be their protector in case the Hand attack. So that's a possibility that Davos gets sent to retrieve Dany, or Davos is already out and working with the Hand potentially, and that's why Dany escaped from Kunlun or left Kunlun to go after Davos. But I'm 100% that Davos is going to be in the series.
Yeah, no, I would be the same. As I said previously, Davos is kind of a Mordo type character in that he's not necessarily a bad guy, but he does seek the power of the molten heart of Xiao and of course he loses that to Dany, and there is an element of that kind of jealousy. Now he does as well in himself tap into that power, and he's known as the Steel Serpent, and he has that symbol on, so that's why we call it the Steel Serpent symbol. But also, ultimately, it can also represent Xiao the Undying, in the same way that the Iron Fist symbol is also, a representative of having fought and beaten Xiao the Undying.
Yeah,
he's not very good at staying alive, really, is it? As a dragon,
was he christened the Undying or something? Was he?
Well, it's more that the dragon resurrects. So even though he is dead and beaten, it's more that he's beaten, but it comes, it's the power is eternal and so on.
Interesting. So. Yeah. What do you think, Chris? Are we convinced you?
No, I'm 50-50 now.
Okay.
It was an obvious name drop.
Yeah.
For comic book fans. I think they may hold off on him till Defenders now.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Because we are getting Kunlun flashback at some point. And if Davos isn't in the Kunlun flashback
No. So I think he'll be in the flashback.
Okay.
I don't think he'll be in present day.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
I think they'll introduce him. They'll introduce the Mordo-like back and forth part where they're good best friends, and then the rift happens at the end of the flashback, or happens in additional flashback, and then later on we'll get more hints to Davos and Davos' return. But I think that's it. I think they're holding him for Defenders because we have Elektra against Daredevil. We'll have potentially Davos against Iron Fist. We'll potentially have Diamondback again back for Luke Cage.
With a new powered suit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then we'll have, and I think have Kilgrave back for Jessica Jones. Because I think they'll potentially resurrect. They'll bring back 4 big bads together to be fought in a one-on-one. Maybe Kilgrave not, because he's, to what we've seen, completely dead.
He is dead. He's dead as dead.
But we've seen Elektra we've seen Elektra being put in the resurrection jar at the end of Daredevil season 2. We see Diamondback getting his new suit potentially, and then what we're getting now is they're name checking a character, as you say, a Mordo-like character from Doctor Strange or in Iron Fist, to set him up to be the big bad then.
I think that points to the fact that we will actually see him, Chris, because we've seen all of those characters that you're mentioning, and they've all battled with their counterparts in those shows.
So just so that we've got the theory clear, Chris, they're going to hold off on Davos until the Defenders, but he might show up in the flashback in Iron Fist.
Yes, that's my theory.
Interesting. Right.
There's got to be one wrong theory this season. Ooh, gauntlet drops.
Gauntlet slapped across the face. Let's move on to the next point.
Just one thing before we move on from the conversation around the dinner table. I did like, because Claire's always our viewpoint as an audience, I did like her description of Dany Rand as being, it's a true riches to rags to riches story. Just that was a great boiling down of everything we've seen over the last few episodes. And that's Claire's job. Like she is that character that's supposed to give insight to an audience who is seeing superheroes for the first time. She's supposed to be our viewpoint as an audience if we were in this situation.
Yeah.
So I do like that, but unfortunately sometimes she also turns into the exposition character.
Yeah, Basil exposition.
Yeah, sometimes because she is the viewpoint of the audience, it's kind of like, and look over here, this is the stuff that you may have forgotten before.
Exactly, and I think that's the point I want to go to. Let's talk about Claire. Let's talk about her in this scene, in this episode.
Yeah.
And jumping on where you're talking about there, yes, she's starting to feel a bit like the Stan Lee of the Netflix. She's just, oh, here's Claire, there she is, yay, great. And then she's exposition in terms of, oh, why am I always? My mother did say it's my destiny to meet you guys and constantly help you out. And then later on, she's the MacGyver of helping them out. I'm like, really? At what point is she going to go just... Also, by the way, she calls Danny a powered person, but he hasn't showed her any powers. He hasn't talked about any powers. He just said, it's my job to fight the hand.
Yeah.
I was like, she's jumping to conclusions. I could go down and tell her, I don't like the hand. And she goes, oh, you're super powered. I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's do it. Yeah, I'm super powered. That's fine.
Anything to get Claire's number, Chris. Anything to get Claire's number. I love it. No, I know what you mean. Yeah, there is definitely that moment with Claire in this episode where she does feel like she's just talking through some previous points that we may have missed in Daredevil season 2. I do like the tie-in. I do like the fact that the minute she hears the hand, she jumps back as you would.
Yeah, that was great.
Hang on a second, this isn't to do with the hand. I thought you were just helping a mate of yours that got stabbed. Oh, don't tell me I've just got myself involved in another of these situations. So I kind of like that reaction from Claire. And Rosario Dawson, as always, delivers the role really well. But I think she's saddled with that moment of, okay, what if people haven't seen Daredevil season 2? Because this will be really important to them to know that they've been working in the city. Okay, give those lines to Claire.
Wait, I just have this vision of her going, previously in Daredevil. And it's just Rosario Dawson with a really deep voice. Previously in the last episode.
I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I really liked her credit card surgery, a MacGyver-esque patch-up of the chemist. I think this is actually truly where she is now becoming the night nurse, because she's not attached to the hospital. It's all in her spare time. It's one of the kind of group, or even though the group hasn't yet established, but she's working off her own back here now, outside of the hospital setting that we've seen her in. Up till now, obviously she got fired. I think it was in Daredevil season 2, and she, in Luke Cage, then she's kind of taking that break in a sense, and here we have her now patching up this guy. I like that kind of idea.
She did officially make the decision during Luke Cage that she would take the opportunity to help out people who were powered people who were trying to help the city.
Exactly.
She would be there to help them. Wasn't that the decision that she made when she was talking to her mother?
Yeah. I think her reaction, as you say, on hearing about the hand, I even just like with the chemist saying how they've got his daughter, just how the hand operate, and that reflecting on how Claire responds to it all. I think, and that tie-in with Daredevil. Although I was surprised she didn't name him really at that moment. I know maybe it's too soon for Iron Fist, but the idea that she knows that Daredevil is already battling the hand.
Yeah.
Here's this guy now that is saying, I was trained to battle the hand. Okay, come on, Claire. Introduce them.
Especially because she calls out, well, you can't do this alone.
Exactly.
And he goes, I'm not alone. And she's kind of going, you could be even less alone. I have a phone number of a guy, right, who's been battling these guys for about 2 years. He can help you out,
Yeah, so it'll be, I think it'll be interesting to see if that happens in the next couple of episodes. Again, whether that's too soon because of Defenders, I don't know. But I mean, I thought this was a good introduction for Claire. But yeah, I think sometimes it's that she just gets saddled with the exposition. And sometimes she does that fine, absolutely. But sometimes it's kind of, as I say, I think just the shoehorn of the takeout scene, again, it's just one of those things where less is more, maybe, I think, with Claire Temple in some cases,
I'm looking forward to seeing her back next episode.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really looking forward to seeing her back. I think it's how you use her. Because she's doing the exposition a lot of the time, I think just got to be careful.
Hopefully it's been done in this episode, and they don't have to do it in another episode next time.
Yeah, I think that's why I get the feeling that this was probably the previously on Daredevil season 2, line, and hopefully we'll see the Rosario Dawson Claire Temple that we saw in Luke Cage, which is they waited for a while, they introduced her with her mom, then she became an integral part of the series.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm thinking that's what will happen again. I think they have noticed over time that we've latched onto something good here.
Mm-hmm.
We found a good reason to consistently have the night nurse or Claire Temple in. Again, we keep calling her night nurse. It hasn't been confirmed. We're just assuming.
Yeah.
But
she is the Nick Fury of the TV shows. I love that she's being used
exactly.
That way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're going to be able to do in a good way. I think that I'm not aware of any Daredevil, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones crossover in this series in terms of cameos.
I really don't want to know either. I hope we get to the episode where it's a big surprise before anybody spoils it.
Yeah, like Wilson Fisk in season 2 of Daredevil.
Yeah,
that's what I'm kind of hoping we can get there. At the pace we podcast and the style of we podcast to the listeners, we watch and then record, then watch and then record. I'm afraid we may get spoiled. We're we're over 24 hours it out in the world.
Yeah.
And I've yet to see many spoilers.
Yes. Agreed.
Especially not in our community.
Yeah.
But there's nothing to say come Monday when all the
IGN and comic book movie spoiler titled articles start appearing in my feed. Yeah. No,
exactly. And I'd be like, I need to build an app just for Defenders that goes on my Chrome and just literally blots out spoilers for Defenders.
That would be awesome.
Replaces Defenders with kittens. I don't know why kittens, but I thought it'd be funny. Maybe monkeys, if that's your preference. I'll give you a choice. I'll see what I can do.
Or puppies, of course.
Puppies, monkeys, kittens. We could just have lots of Xiaolao the Undying. Just lots of pictures of Xiaolao the Undying.
That would also be pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think that's enough about Claire and puppies and kittens.
Dragons.
And dragons, of course. On to our final point. Last point really is Danny a bit of a threat to Rand Industries himself? We talked about it a little bit with Ward as an addict earlier on, but is Danny actually, even by mistake, becoming a bit of a threat? You know?
Absolutely.
Getting caught apologizing almost for something he isn't aware of, has had no dealings with, when a woman walks up to him in the street and says, 15 people dying of cancer, including my son, because of Rand Industries. And he goes, oh, that's terrible, I'll make it right. It's a pretty bad moment for Danny. He kind of puts his foot in it, really. Yeah. With this woman and getting caught on camera. And he doesn't know anything about it either. So...
yeah, he's really put Rand Enterprises in the mud here, like in a difficult position, because obviously we see earlier Joy being fairly business ruthless about, we're up to the regulatory code type of thing and so on. And they're kind of, they're pretty confident that the plaintiffs don't really have a case, so that they can kind of move forward. But obviously Danny's compassion is ultimately at odds with the cutthroat corporate world, I suppose, and the self protection of the corporate entity. So it's really interesting. I mean, I wonder if that is why Harold Meacham wanted him to be back at Rand Enterprises. Is there some kind of overarching thing and strategy here of the Hand that, yes, it's about building Rand Enterprises up, but actually the best way to destroy Danny is through all this sort of naivety in dealing with a business and a massive multinational, which I think is interesting. I suppose for me, the only thing is I'm wondering, how is this going to play out with this case? Like we've already had the pharmaceutical vaccination where he put his kind of stamp on. We have that here now. I mean, are we going to see another one, or is this going to get followed through? I mean, I think like the point is made now that he doesn't really know business particularly well, and he will always be led by his compassionate side rather than his corporate or his commercial business side. And in fact, he says that here. So I'm just wondering, how will this play out? I mean, if it develops, then fine. But there was part of me that kind of felt, did we really need to see him messing up again in the world of business? And that they could have just developed the vaccine that he was going to sell at cost where he'd put the stamp was, again, that's now fallen by the wayside. So there is a bit of me that thinks maybe we just didn't need to see this, actually.
Yeah, so for me, I think I know where this is going. So we talked about Jerry. Jerry hasn't been seen this episode. And I think this is where her character will more shine and come to light in the mentor-like element. Because I think what they'll do with Danny in the comics is a suave businessman. He is the actual CEO of Rand Enterprises. He does the very much Bruce Wayne Batman type thing, where they're both good at what they do in terms of that. I think Danny will be hung from the rafters, for this, and I think he'll turn to Jerry and have to go, teach me.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of doing it. Certainly, I like Jerry's counsel to Danny that she did in episode 3 and so on.
Right.
I think that's really good. So, yeah, maybe it's going down that route. If so, it probably get, rescue it from the molten fire of Shao Lao the Undying.
That's really interesting. I'm obviously the more hippie of the three of our podcast hosts here, because I think Danny is doing the right business decisions for the type of business that he would run. And if he gets guidance from somebody else like Jerry or Joy to run business the way that they were running it in the past in Rand becomes an evil empire, becomes the evil corporation that it effectively is. Charging $50 for a pill that costs $5 to make, that's evil corporation stuff. Danny was right to say, do it at a lower rate. Again, to Chris's point before, he could have made some profit out of it, yeah. But this other decision here to say he will investigate what's going on and maybe change the practice of the company so they don't cause people to get cancer around their buildings. Those are all good decisions to make.
I'm not saying it's not a good decision. I'm questioning whether we've already see him put a stamp on it. I'm not about saying whether it's a good or bad decision. I'm not trying to say the morals or the ethics of it. I'm just saying that it's a different twist on the same situation with the pharmaceutical about how you approach it. But I think it would be good having the Jerry angle into that, because in the comics, it is that Jerry ultimately runs the company, but she is more in tune with what Danny is about. Whereas the Meachams, they're still just running the company. As far as they're concerned, he's going to sit in his corner office and take the paycheck.
And that's the reason why you needed this in this episode, because by making that change in the last episode to the pricing in the pharmaceuticals, it had no lasting impact on how the business make their decisions. They still went ahead with the same meeting that they would have had with these victims and their lawyer. They went ahead with the same meeting after that decision was made that they would have had a week ago before Danny even arrived. So you need to have a second time where Danny does make the stamp and it is effectively kind of going, this is how I would run our company. Now, it's not as clear here because he kind of falls into it, obviously, outside. But I think what we'll see in future is another couple of storylines like this, because Danny will be trying to turn the business into, to use your example, Chris, into a Wayne Enterprises, philanthropic and at its core quite a moral business that is making the right decisions rather than a business that's just driven by money, because that's not what interests Danny. So he needs to try and put his stamp on it like that. I think that's the storyline they're going to go with Danny. And while he will need Jerry's help, and she is now going to be involved in the business, I don't think it'll be to train him to do the business the way it's currently being run.
If that came across like that, I think, yes, you're right. I think what will end up, it will be Jerry teaching him, don't say, oh, I'm very sorry, and I'll look into it straight away when a stranger comes up to you and blames your company for causing cancer. It's more you can run the business and we can be philanthropic and we can look after things and we can be good. So this is, I think, the disaster that will cause Danny to grow. This is all about the growth of Danny, both as the Iron Fist and as Daniel Rand, leader of Rand Enterprises.
Yeah. I mean, I think the other thing quickly is that on the pharmaceutical thing and the vaccine, like he says, there's other areas of the company that can make the money, i.e. the chemicals and the energy and the space sector. Well, all of those have potential impacts. But at the moment, in that moment, he is focused on the vaccine. And I think all I'm saying is develop that vaccine that, another one comes on stream and they do the 50 quidder rather than the cost pricing. And he questions it and he comes at it from this. It's to let room for other storytelling, ultimately, on the Iron Fist. And it keeps that thread, whereas it's kind of just had to set up this chemical company and or this chemical plant and so on. That's all I mean. But I think in terms of how it will develop Danny, absolutely, that's great. I just didn't feel we needed a second example of that. Develop the first one that he, that's all, I suppose.
Okay.
So on that note, where will Danny go? But I think let's wrap up our points. I think that's all our points right now.
Mm-hmm.
So for the only note that I kind of, again, this is the one we're trying to look up for pretty much every one of the episodes. We are aware that each episode is a kung fu move. The name of the episode, I should say, Under Leaf Plucks Lotus. Again, Google search and Google Images is not the most helpful with this.
What are you saying, Chris?
I'm saying that we need a fan who potentially is or has been trained by Shaolin Kung Fu monks to come and teach us and tell us, well, this move means this, or this actually means this.
Would be awesome.
Because we have no idea. So, guys, spread your wings, go fly our little, go fly and find us someone who can explain these to us. Because I actually really want to know. The closest I can come up with, actually, I should say that Derek came up with, is that we see him create a flower with origami.
Yeah.
And that could be the lotus. Maybe we're stretching here, people. We need help.
Yeah,
it's not like Whiskey Watch. We're good at finding whiskey. We know our whiskeys. But not our kung fu moves and their names.
We are not great. That was a very cute moment with Ward's personal assistant where while he's talking to her and finding out about a bit more about the business, he just is moving his hands on a bit of paper and then leaves the origami flower on her desk. I just think that was quite a it's very cool little thing to do and very cute with Danny, and as if that's just what he does with his hands when they're not punching people in the face, it's just keep them moving,
Yeah, I mean the other good thing as well that he did with his hands was that punch out of the back of the container, and the fact that Colleen, I love that it was from the viewpoint of the car that Colleen was tailing the truck in, and you just saw his golden iron fist just slowly receding. Yeah, really good.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, no, that was pretty cool.
So she may know he's powered now.
I think she does.
Yeah.
That's probably why she's bought in. She's like, she wants to be part of the crew.
Right. I was wondering, when you're in a car and you go over a bump and you notice it, would you think that the driver of the truck might have noticed his back doors blowing off and smacking off the sides of his truck?
You'd think so.
Maybe.
Before he stopped,
Yeah, maybe.
Can we also, just as a note, there were two other trucks. Who were in the other two trucks?
I know.
You see?
The accountant and the general secretary.
Yeah, someone's going to make the drugs, so maybe it's all the staff that make the drugs, maybe something like that. It was a really weird plan because we saw the drugs at the beginning of the episode. They're very small. It's a little patch. I did think it was a weird plan to stand very far back from the trucks and see if you could make out what was inside them without any binoculars or anything, or originally without even going into the trucks, And when Danny was standing behind the cardboard boxes after the doors closed, it was like a pantomime. I was shouting at the screen going, "Look behind you, Danny. There's huge curtains there. There's something behind them. Have a look, Danny." He's looking at the blank boxes.
Kind of going, poor Danny. You're so pretty and so good at martial arts, but not so smart. Oh, Danny.
That's not fair.
Well, hold on. Until he proves me otherwise and automatically goes and looks behind the big curtain. I'm holding judgment.
And on that bombshell, John, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I do defend this episode of Iron Fist. I'm giving it 3.5 Madame Gao canes out of 5. I did like this, and I think primarily for Madame Gao. I thought there was a little bit of a stall in this, and for me that came from this now chemical plant thing, and Danny effectively messing up again in terms of from the company's perspective and how that will play out. But I think if, as we've discussed on this, it plays out with Jerry getting more involved, then actually, okay, fair enough, that would probably change my view on that, definitely. So I'm fingers crossed for that. I did also like some of the fallout from it. You know, Ward's kind of, you know, this was probably the thing that took him over the edge, and we see his addiction to drugs here. Good to see Claire Temple back doing her MacGyver stuff. That was really good. And just the chemist and the hand with Madame Gao. For me, that was excellent, and I'm really hoping we get almost a full-on episode with Gao, and we actually get some answers on the hand's real plan here, and maybe even that Davos, is introduced more fully. Maybe he doesn't appear, but maybe we get some more information. But it was good to get the name drop there, definitely. So I think this is building still quite nicely. I think it could have built a bit further if it had just focused on this new drug being touted rather than having this side quest and thing going on with the chemical plant. But yeah, I definitely defend this episode. Yeah, so Chris, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I do. It was not my favourite. Potentially, it's one of the slowest ones. We got some action. I was a bit annoyed about, as I said, Danny getting his glowing fist, his non-glowing fist, I should say, handed to him nearly about 3 or 4 times. But the Madame Gao, some of the exposition from Claire, there was elements that made up for it. It was a slower episode. It was an episode, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah. It was neither the amazing triumphant return that we were hoping for, nor was it the immortal dying breath of a series.
Right.
It was the unbeating heart of Xiao Lao the Undying. It was just somewhere in the middle. It was just, okay, let's get us from point A to point B. Mm-hmm. Let's introduce Claire. There was some good elements to it, and I think I don't want the listeners to think I'm trying being too hard or too negative about this series. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying it. It's just it has yet to fully sink in its talons into my brain, where I'm dying and cursing Derek's name that I can't watch and binge watch the next episode.
Absolutely.
At the point now, it's like I kind of want to see what happens next, but I can wait. I want a podcast first. Right now, until we get, say, the next big, this is the best thing ever about this, mm-hmm. I'm still a bit lukewarm to this episode. So it is neither good nor it is bad. It just is. I think I'm trying to sound like Danny now with his really weird quotes. It is not good. It is not bad. It just is.
Very Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. On that, Derek, do you defend this episode of Iron Fist?
I do, yeah, and I definitely see the points of both of you on the episode. There's a couple of it's not 100%. This isn't a top level episode that you would flick back on at any time. But yeah, there's some great points in it. Definitely with Madame Gao. I love seeing Claire Temple back in the show, and especially this early because it means we're going to get more of her, which is always good. And there were some great moments there with Danny and Colleen. But I do see a lot of your points. It does kick off a lot more questions for the series. And in these kind of episodes, you get the questions, and then later on in the series, they get answered. That's kind of been the route of Netflix. They build you up for the first 5 or 6 episodes with here's all the questions you need answered, and then give you the answers over the course of the next 6 episodes, and then an episode wrap up. That's kind of the way their systems work. So I'm hopeful that we'll get the questions answered. I don't need every episode to be the best episode ever made. This was a slight step back from episode 4, but still, it's a solid episode. Definitely. So it makes me want to watch the next one. I'm certainly not giving up after this one. This was a good
Well,
one.
absolutely not. No.
Yeah,
No, I don't think any of us. I don't think any of us are giving up. It's still keeping pace. I just want it to be soaring slightly a bit higher. At the moment, it's at like third story. That the eagle may fly into the window, but if he can get a bit higher, it may just go over the top of the building. So we're just like, soar, eagle, soar!
I think Danny's having effect on your vocabulary, Chris, now, after watching 5 episodes. I think his knowledge and his way of speaking has suddenly had an effect on how you're podcasting. I like it.
Absolutely. Or if you're coming from the hands perspective, take the drugs, eagle, take the drugs. Then you'll get higher and higher.
So, guys, okay, we finish and we've had our defense. So, let's have a bit of feedback.
So our first piece of feedback comes from our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV podcast. Just a bit of general feedback about episode 5 from John Tara Higley, who says, I wasn't overwhelmed with the first episode, really couldn't stand pointless exposition hobo. Might actually be my favourite naming of a character.
That is the best name
we may be stealing that going forward.
That actually trumps Basil Exposition from Austin Powers. I
like it.
Absolutely. I think John Tara, we have a new phrase to use.
I like it. John Tara goes on to say, the second episode is a bit frustrating. What better excuse for a Kunlun flashback than a mental institution? Missed opportunity. Bit of a boring episode. However, 3 and 4 is where it really started hitting its stride. I was questioning whether or not I really even liked the show or whether it was just a big improvement over the first 2 episodes. Easy answer, especially after just finishing a couple more episodes. I'm in. It's super fun. For episode 4, glad the whole we don't believe he's Danny Rand or do we thing is over. Colin Wing cage fighting is always awesome. Would love to see a Daughters of the Dragon show. Great scene between Daddy Meacham and Christian Bale, American Psycho Meacham in the Not So Sanctum Sanctorum.
I think 3 and 4 were absolutely really, really good. To be honest, I really liked 2 as well. Mm-hmm. I think actually I completely see your point about, being in the psychiatric hospital, being able to sort of even just ramp up that idea of is he crazy, isn't he? And have those bigger, more descriptive flashbacks to Kunlun and really seeing something of this mystical city. I think would have been definitely excellent. It really would have added to that. I mean, I think still it was a good episode, bringing in that idea of him, whether he's mental or not. And certainly, 3 and 4 really good. I like the idea of the not so sanctum sanctorum, where Harold Meacham is being a bit crazy. Yeah, and of course we see him being like great crazy in episode 4. Definitely, thanks for the feedback, John. Really good.
Yeah, so I had never connected the American Psycho with Ward, and now you've said it, I'm like, does he have business cards? Oh my god, I would happily have a scene of just Ward and Danny comparing business cards. That'd be amazing.
Have you got the eggshell?
Well, I've got a more it's more oak based white, off white if you will, and it's raised with La Basse times Roman. If you must know.
Very impressive, Chris.
Very good. Yeah.
All right, Chris is definitely an American Psycho.
Yeah. Keep the knives away from Chris. And the chainsaws, for that matter.
Michael Booth says, damn it, why doesn't Claire just say, I know these other guys who can help with experience fighting the Hand. This is killing me. David Wang replies, especially considering it's the Hand. I think we talked about this in the episode. Yeah, we're totally on your side here. Claire really needs to tell them that that Daredevil's out there and that she knows other people that can help Danny with fighting against the Hand.
Yeah, no, I mean, Claire really does need to say that. I do think there's the constraints probably of the show. And it's interesting. Rebecca again comes with a really interesting sort of comparison. It's the same in the films. Once the Avengers have met each other, you wonder why they don't call on each other to help. Will possibly be the same in DCEU after Justice League, depending on what films come out. Only in some of them does it make sense to me. And yeah, absolutely. absolutely. I mean, I think it was the idea that Thor didn't show up in Civil War, is one of the classic sort of omissions there. And I think moving forward in Marvel Netflix, it'd be difficult to see these characters not interacting. And that's why I do hold out a bit of hope that, we may get a little Daredevil cameo in this series. Luke Cage is banged up in prison, so that will be a tall one to try and squeeze in. But maybe, just maybe, we do get Daredevil in episode 10, 11 or 12 or one of those, because then that would just flow nicely into Defenders, where Doctor Strange makes an appearance.
It is one of those weird things about the TV shows and the movies that when I'm reading a comic book, I don't go on panel 7, oh, I wish this was Daredevil walking into the panel here and telling him this vital piece of information. There's a universe of 300 to 500 characters in the Marvel universe. Can't have them all walking in and out of each other, but because they're the Netflix shows, you do expect to have a bit of crossover. They're in the same city. New York is a big city, though.
Yeah, but they have a subway system.
Oh, but don't forget then Spidey's swinging across their heads now at this point as well. No, he's in Brooklyn. See, him and Iron Fist are not going to get on. Rich kid, Boston or Brooklyn kid. So it's not going to work out. That's why I figured it out.
But Spider-Man's Achilles heel is insecticide. Yeah, that could have been used on the Bride of the Nine Spiders. A bit of raid.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for that feedback on episode 5.
Yeah, and don't forget that we actually want to hear your voices too. So pop over to DefendersTVPodcast.com and go through there, and we have a little bit where you can leave a voicemail for us for about 90 seconds of your thoughts on a particular episode. And we have a marvelous Marvel-themed prize at the end of the season, where we'll be giving away one lucky winner a marvelous Marvel prize. Try saying that 3 times fast. So we're done, guys. We're done with episode 5. We'll be back for episode 6. Immortal emerges from cave.
This sounds really, really exciting.
Yes, and I believe, Derek, there's a special writer/director for this episode.
There is a very special director from this episode. The RZA is coming to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, coming to direct his first episode of Marvel TV. That's pretty cool.
And Derek, for our listeners who don't know who RZA is, who is he?
RZA is a member of the Wu-Tang Clan, another member after we had Method Man showing up in Luke Cage. RZA has come behind the scenes of the Defenders TV shows and is coming to make his first episode of a Marvel Cinematic TV show. Yeah.
So very good. And I wonder what cave the Immortal Iron Fist is going to emerge from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll be back on Friday the 31st of March with this review. Make sure you have subscribed to all of us on DefendersTVPodcast.com/iTunes, where you can rate us and review us. And of course, if you subscribe to us, we'll automatically come into your inbox that will be notified that we're there. But if you're like me or on other people, we're also on Android, where you can get us on any good or evil podcast catcher, such as Podcast Addict, Podcast Stitcher, etc. But don't forget to subscribe and also leave rating reviews there, because by you rating us and you reviewing us, it helps other people find us all in time for Summer of Spidey. I should mean Defenders, but hey, it's all good. And of course, if you want more discussions with us, we're over on Facebook.com/groups/Defenders TV Podcast, where you can come in and have your thoughts. Leave your thoughts and whims and your notions and your opinions and your good ideas and your bad ideas. And we will be back on Friday the 31st with Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 6, Immortal Emerges from a Cave. Bye for now.
Yep, thank you so much for listening. We will see you again next Friday.
Yeah, thank you as always for all the feedback. It is really appreciated. It's great to hear your thoughts. And again, thank you so much for listening. We will speak with you next time. See you soon. Bye.